Assalamu alaikum. You are tuned in to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, and I am your host, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. And tonight we are going to talk about chapter 3 from my book entitled Developing a Mind Without Borders. You know, so many times we are still responding to childhood traumas. We're going to be talking about that. We build up these walls when we're children that we think are protecting us. And in fact, they may very well have protected us. But now that we're big old grown adults, those same walls are imprisoning us. So let's talk about it right here tonight on the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. Um, this is chapter 3 from my book, okay? Developing a Mind Without Borders. We'll give you guys a few minutes to respond to the algorithm, and remember that we are here, and we'll see you in 2 to 3 minutes. Don't go far, because we got some new commercials for you and some new stuff happening. See you in a minute.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. How's everyone doing this evening? I hope y'all as excited as I am about chapter 3 from the book, Developing a Mind Without Borders. I hope you've all read it. I put a few talking points that we're going to talk through here. But first, let me say this. You know the different. How many of y'all watch like Mutual of Omaha channel and like the Animal Channel and National Geographic? I know I do. I love to get on the plane and put the headphones on and watch the animals. But you know the difference between a lion and a gazelle? I'm gonna save that. But I want you to think about something for a minute. As we're talking about healing from all of these traumas and all of this stuff that we got going on. And y'all see this new backdrop I got here, Financial Trauma Boot Camp. We're going to talk about it in detail tomorrow morning on the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talk, because our topic is financial trauma. And we're going to hit some of the key points, and we're going to talk about why it's necessary for us to do a boot camp. See, because here's the thing. We don't talk about this stuff, and therefore we don't heal about it. We don't heal. Let me say it this way. We don't heal because we don't talk about it. We're too busy trying to be perfect. We're too busy worrying about what somebody else is going to say about us. And we're too busy talking about folks. It's time for us to heal. These traumas have to be dissolved. We got to knock down these walls. We got to create new borders. Our mind has to open up. And if nothing else, our mind has to learn that it's okay to be a mind without borders. So when you're a lion and you don't care about the limitations that you may have, meaning you may be smaller than your prey. You may not be as fast as your prey. You may not be as smart as your prey. But you don't care because you don't got borders on your mind. You've already seen it. And two things I say about that. Some people say, see it and be it. If you see it, you can believe it. That's true. But guess what? If you see it, you can decide whether or not you want to be it. See, you may become so aware that you see something in yourself and you say, I don't want to be that. Or you may say, I'm developing something in my mind that I want to be, and now I see it, and I've decided that I want to be it. This is what these courses and all of that is all about, because until we start to heal this trauma, we cannot be conscious entrepreneurs. We can do for self. We can do better for self once we heal. So a lot of us are out here going, I'm doing for self, I'm getting my business going, but you got financial traumas. You got a mind with borders on it, and that you can't think outside of the neighborhood, or you can't think outside of the restrictions that somebody put on you. So before we jump into this conversation, y'all know I love to show y'all some quick videos. I love learning from YouTube University. Check out this video. We're going to be back. We're not going to be long today, but I promise you we're going to be strong.
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. And it's all mentality. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality. What happens when you're a gazelle and you're not being pushed? You're not being prodded. You're not given a reward. Nobody's encouraging you. What happens when you're a gazelle and the lion's not chasing you anymore? You stop running. But what happens when you're a lion? When you are a lion, it does not make a difference. You realize that if your family is going to eat, that if that pack of lions is to survive, then you gotta go hunt. A part of being a beast just ain't eating a gazelle. A part of being a beast is the hunt. It's the hunt that they're excited about. They like to see the gazelles run. Then boom, they take off. Because real lions like to hunt. They love the process just as much as they love the prize. And some of y'all just want to score. You don't like the process. You're not in love with the process. A true hunter's goal is not the prize. A true hunter's goal is to hunt. That's what they live for. They live to hunt. They don't just live to catch it. It's the whole process. When you are a true hunter, you don't go by time. You go by the gazelle. When you are a true hunter, you hunt until you get a gazelle, and you don't stop until you get one. And then you get another, and then you get another, and you get another. If you're going to do what you say you're going to do, be what you say you're going to be, you're going to have to lion me out. You a gazelle, you're going to come up short. You a gazelle, you're going to have an average experience. You a student, I need you in lion mode. You an entrepreneur, I need you in lion mode. You try to lose weight, lion mode. You can't do nothing significant in gazelle mode, nothing. Nothing impressive happens in gazelle mode. Nothing happens in run mode, give up mode, quit mode, scared mode, fearful mode, nothing happens. Everything happens in lion mode like I'm coming to get you.
All right, y'all. I hope that got y'all pumped up for our conversation tonight. Because the first thing I want to talk about, and I want to ask you a question. Who were you before you became conscious of race? Who were you before somebody told you as a little child that you were Black and you couldn't do certain things? Who were you when you were a little child before somebody told you that women don't do certain things? What kind of personality did you have as a little child, as that little girl, as a little boy? What kind of personality did you have before somebody told you that you weren't tall enough, that you weren't strong enough, that you weren't fast enough? What kind of personality did you have before somebody told you we don't have enough money for that? What kind of personality were you? And then who were you and what kind of personality did you have? And then what did you do when certain events impacted you negatively? See, that's all trauma is. It's when a particular event impacts you negatively. Who were you before you found out that your mama was poor and her mother and father before her was poor, and so on and so forth? Who were you before you found out that you were rich? I don't know your circumstances, but who were you before you understood all of these things that impacted you negatively, or before you experienced all of these things that happened to you negatively? See, most of us were different people when we were little children. And then something happened to us. Some traumatic event happened to us, and it caused us to put up walls. It may not be abuse per se. See, I think we get caught up when we start talking about trauma because we're looking for what they call those big traumas. I'm talking about anything that impacted you negatively, that caused you to put up a wall. See, the walls we put up as children to protect ourselves become the walls that imprison us as adults. And part of healing from trauma and having that mind without borders is understanding what those walls are and why we put them up, but most importantly, how those walls are holding us back. Many of us have so many rules. We got life rules that we set up and we put up because we wanted to protect ourselves. And it's okay. Nobody is to blame. It makes sense that you would survive and protect yourself. But do you still need that protection today? Or do you need new tools so that you can figure out how to survive and thrive? Huh? Survive and thrive and break yourself out of the prison that you've been in since you were a child. How many of you have ever gone to therapy and connected with the little child in you? It's a powerful process. You don't have to go to therapy to do that. All you got to do is take yourself out and be quiet. Get into that meditative state and look at that little child. Look at that little girl that you were. Look at what she's wearing. Imagine her in your favorite dress. Imagine him in your favorite outfit. Maybe an Easter outfit or something like that. Y'all know how we love Easter in our community. And then just think about, how does she feel? And have a conversation with her. Tell her everything's going to be all right. Have a conversation with him. Tell him, you know what? You are good enough. You are loved. There isn't anything wrong with you. See, we may think that we raised our children perfectly, but we send them out into the world and into school systems that traumatize them. It's okay that you're not perfect, but tell that little girl that. Tell that little boy that. And tell them that those walls that they have up may not be necessary, and take some time to reconstruct them. You know what helps with that? Reading. This concept of, and I'm going to come to that. Let me save that for the next one. But this concept of developing a mind without borders came from the reading I used to do as a child. I was a voracious reader. I started reading at 4, and I loved fiction novels and world history. And so I would read about the palaces in Qatar and in Rome and in the Emirates. I would just read about all of these grand palaces and these amazing spiritual experiences, and my mind would go there. And so I began to live in this world where I didn't feel like I had any borders. And I didn't mind being quiet or by myself. See, when I put this statement in the book, the first place to open the borders of your mind is around how you see yourself. I grew up seeing myself as part of this royal lineage. I saw my royal ancestry. That a lot of that came from reading and just going there in my mind. Even if I read something from the Bible, or I could see the women and I could see myself there with them, I would imagine what it smelled like, what it felt like. So it's very easy for me to go back to that little girl and say to her, don't worry, it's okay. But then this is what happened. Then I got to college, and somebody said, you don't have enough money. And somebody said, oh, you don't come from this background or that background. I'll tell you a story that's interesting. And this, I think this interaction created a trauma in me that caused me to start putting up walls. When I got to college, I went in a summer program, so I went early. And a lot of the other students, and no shade towards them, but a lot of people were there because they were taking remedial classes. Well, me, for myself, I had I had some AP credits, and I had been National Honor Society and all of that. So I didn't come from that. At the same time, I didn't come from that traditional urban background. Obviously, I have parents. My parents are Black. They worked hard, but they weren't considered traditionally urban. So a lot of the grants and a lot of that kind of stuff I didn't qualify for. But they couldn't necessarily pay for my education. So I had to work and I had to get scholarships and I had to try to figure out, how to maneuver to get this thing paid for. And I remember going through like the Black Student Union and some of the other minority programs, and they would always turn me down. No, you don't qualify. No, you can't have that. I remember everybody was getting food stamps and they was like, you can't get none. Everybody had these work release jobs and they were like, nope, you can't have any. And so my personality started to adjust because I started to realize I'm going to have to figure out how to make this happen myself. And so I started to develop these walls and these borders around myself. And then I went through, I think it wasn't until maybe I did this extended program. And it wasn't until I went to go do the extended program that I even got like a loan or I think it was a grant or something like that. And even to this day, when people say to me, well, work on getting some grants or work on doing certain things, I'm a little bit adverse to it because I was treated differently because I didn't come from that traditional urban background. And then even once I graduated and I got to Chicago, my favorite place I had read about, where I always wanted to live my entire life, I got to Chicago in the early 90s. I started to see the differences that were made between people, and I became very offended by that. See, I came up in school, and a lot of my friends were from Chicago, and they were all from the West Side. I didn't even know there was a South Side of Chicago. I only knew the West Side. And then later, even some of my best friends to this day are West Siders. And that was all I knew. I had never gone to the South Side of Chicago until I accepted Islam and went to the mosque on Stony Island. And then I was like, oh. Then somebody told me, said, well, there's a North Side too. And I said, oh, I thought it was just all West Side. But because I started to, personality-wise, identify with my friends on the West Side, when I would hear people talking about West Side, South Side, North Side, making a difference, it offends me to this day. So I was just around somebody who was talking negative about the West Side. And I say, ooh, I live on the South Side of Chicago now, but you can't do that around me. That tugs at my heart. Because it's a trauma that happened to me when I started to see the discrimination. Even this, let me tell you this. Once I moved to the South Side, and then I got my real estate license and I started selling real estate on the West Side, everybody and their mama was like, girl, you crazy. Don't go over there. Don't be bothered. And let me tell you something. Because I did not allow my mind to have borders around me because of what somebody else was saying that was negative, the most money I made in real estate was on the West Side. The most healing that I have from people in terms of friendships and relationships occurred on the West Side. The West Side healed me because I had gone through some trauma before I started going back on the West Side to sell real estate. And the West Side healed me with the love. But I would never have been able to experience that healing if I had not understood this concept of a mind without borders. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I'm not perfect emotionally. I've definitely put up my fair share of borders around myself, but I work really hard to not allow those borders to imprison me. Even in my Islam, I see Islam as a very universal way of living. And so I don't allow other people's definition of my spirituality to cause me to put borders around myself. And because of that, I have friendships in all walks of life, which is what is promised to us, we're taught as Muslims in the Nation of Islam. Because of that, I have friendships in all walks of life. I know people from all over, from everywhere, different races, different ethnicities, but most importantly, not allowing those borders to go around my mind and to imprison me and put me in a position where I'm constantly creating rules and setting limitations for myself. Nope, can't do that. Can't do this. Can't go there. That's not how I live. So the first place to open the borders of your mind is around how you see yourself. And I'll tell you something. Somebody asked me a question. I was in an interview and they said, what does it mean to be a Black woman? I think they said in corporate America. They didn't put the Muslim in there, but they said a Black woman. And I said, well, first of all, I've always been a woman. I've always been female. So I don't have another perspective. So I can't really answer that question because I don't have any restrictions or borders around myself because this is who I've always been that I know of. Maybe in another past life I was something else. I don't know. But even when I see myself in antiquity, I was a woman. Okay. And then they asked me about Blackness and what's it like to be a Black person. And most of the time when people ask you a question like that, you automatically answer within the border. Black in comparison to what? White or Hispanic. And I said, I don't see myself the way in which you are probably fishing for me to answer that question. I was taught that Allah created himself out of triple darkness, out of the blackness of space. And I was taught that I am a direct descendant of God, of the Creator himself. And as being a direct descendant of the Creator, I'm Black because I come up out of that Black richness of knowledge, that Black richness that can produce and create and be anything that I want, because you can create anything out of Blackness. Everything comes out of triple darkness. And so that's who I am. That's how I identify myself. I don't identify myself as Black in comparison to a white person. I identify myself as being a product of that space of triple darkness, that space of Blackness. So when I travel around the world, I connect with people all around the world who look like me. And then on a human level, I connect with people who don't look like me. So I'm not walking around seeing myself through the eyes of a conqueror or the eyes of white supremacy. I can open any business I want. I can do whatever it is that I want. And whenever I experience trauma or certain traumas bubble up, I remind myself of that. If I get nervous or I get scared or if I get worried, we all have different ways in which we have to tune in and check in with ourselves. And I do that. And I make sure that I'm not dealing with some level of trauma. And I remind myself who I am and whose I am. That's why it's important to check in with yourself. And what's most important, and I know a lot of us don't like this because we've been taught against this, but what's most important is how you feel. Not how you feel from a selfish or egoic standpoint, not how you feel in comparison to somebody else. So, not how you feel and saying, I feel good, I don't care how you feel. Not that. I'm talking about understanding how you feel so that you can take emotional measurement of yourself and figure out what you need to do to either get yourself back to center or to alignment, or to just understand what just happened so you can prevent that event from becoming a traumatic one. So I check in with myself. Somebody say something negative to me, or I get some bad news, or if I'm worried about whether or not to speak up about something, or maybe I speak up prematurely, or I say too much. I ask myself, how do you feel? How do you feel right now? Not how you feel in comparison to that person you just talked to. Not how you feel based on how they may see you, but how do you feel right now? And if I say to myself, ooh, I'm feeling nervous or I'm feeling scared, then I deal with that. Because oftentimes fear is just lack of information. And so immediately I'll say, okay, Allah, give me the information that I need so that I'm not operating in fear. And most of the time, it's a space of gratitude. Most time it's not necessarily getting something right away, but if I'm worried about something, I start looking around at everything that I have to be grateful for and everything that I've overcome and how amazing the table is that God has prepared for me. And that'll settle me down a little bit, but it just depends. But the most important thing is, how do you feel? All right. The next thing I want you guys to think about is out of the box thinking can disrupt an entire industry. And you all have heard me have this conversation before. And I'm sorry, I didn't acknowledge y'all in the chat. I'll do that in a minute. You all hear me call you all industry disruptors. Why do I call you industry disruptors? Because in our community, we are trained to think outside the box. I think the interesting thing is that we are not always conscious of the fact that we're thinking outside the box. And I think if we were more conscious of it and we applied it to some of the everyday problems that we have, I think we could probably heal from some of this trauma a lot faster. What do I mean by that? No matter what we go through, we are so creative. You can go to any neighborhood, any Black neighborhood in the world, but especially in the United States of America, and you see us dressing. We are fashion icons. You see us dressing a certain way. You see us being creative. You see us doing fancy things with our cars. You see us coming up with all kinds of things. Our creativity is on 10. We create music that you never heard before, sounds that you never heard before, songs that you can't imagine. We're playing instruments. We're doing all of these things in the belly of all of this trauma. It's amazing. We've always been out of the box thinkers, but we have to know how to apply it, because what happens to us is that we got the muscle to think outside the box, to be creative. But I think what happens is that then we get a problem. We run into a financial issue. We run into a health issue. We run into an educational issue. And then the borders that other person has put on our levels of achievement, we take them on. We've always figured out how to make things happen. We've always figured out how to do what we got to do. But all of a sudden, we can't get along with one another. Black male and females can't get along. Females are fighting on television, throwing bottles and all kind of crazy stuff, and that becomes the thing. Where's this coming from? This is coming from somebody else saying, you're not good enough. Somebody else saying, oh, you're Black, you're not good enough. Oh, you're Muslim, you're not good enough. Oh, you're Catholic, you're not good enough. Somebody else said that. And then they said that and it negotiated us out of our position. Now, all of a sudden, we can't figure out how to think outside the box. We can't manifest no more all of a sudden because they had a picture in their head about who you are, and they did a good job at transferring or transmitting that picture to you, and you illuminated it in your mind, and then you said, oh yeah, that's right. That is who I am. We got to stop this. We have to get over it. So why is it so important that we have these conversations as Black businesses, as conscious entrepreneurs? Because so many of us have bought into the propaganda that we just can't do it. These statistics out here, Black people don't have money. Black people don't have businesses. We can't do this or that. Even something simple as people saying Black people can't swim. Yeah, there's some of us that can't swim, just like there's white people who can't swim. But we tend to, in our community, we live in these storylines that create trauma. And we got to work on it. We got to get over it. I'm going to save some of my trauma conversation for tomorrow. But let's see who we got in here. Sister Betty, good evening. Welcome, welcome. Good evening, Mom. Thank you. She said, powerful video. Thank you, Mother. God bless you. Nanny Kosei Venture says, who is this? Ms. Awana. Walaikum salam, Sister Sajdah. Brother Ronald said, peace and blessings. All right. I see some of y'all too shy to say anything in the chat, and it is okay. Up here is the Financial Trauma Boot Camp, and I'm just putting it up here early. Go ahead and scan the QR code so you can check it out. We're going to talk about financial trauma. We're going to talk about the signs of financial trauma. We'll have that conversation tomorrow. Oh, I see Regional Sky Girl said that she is here. She said she here for the replay. Okay, I guess she's going to go and replay this and hear it. But okay, got that. We're going to talk about the signs of financial trauma, how you know that you're experiencing financial trauma, what you can do about it. And then we're going to talk about the boot camp and how we're going to have a 3-hour intensive boot camp. And I want you guys to start thinking about the youth and the young people, because I'm going to have a special for students, which we'll announce next week. I see Newly Refined Designs Company says, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for today. Wa alaikum salam. You're welcome. Mind Without Borders. She said she thought this was a replay. No, sis, this ain't a replay. This is for real. Nope, we're on here responding to you real. Do you have any questions about having a mind without borders? Do you have any questions? And all of this it's all based in trauma, where we put these borders up that imprison us. And so what we're talking about is removing those borders, but maybe redefining boundaries. How about that? Shout out to my hibiscus tea today. Brother Ronald said, great information. Oh, you in Southern Cali, sis? Sunny Southern Cali. I know it's nice out there. It's always nice in Southern Cali for the most part, right? Great information. Thank you. Any other questions? Any comments about developing a mind without borders? This is chapter 3 from my book, The Mind of an Entrepreneur. We are ramping up because God willing, in 9 weeks, we're going to be introducing a new book. So I want to go through this chapter by chapter just to recalibrate y'all. Um, and then chapter 4 is entitled Smart is the New Rich. Leverage your personal experiences to increase your knowledge. It starts off with a quote from Dennis Kimbrough. I see your question, sis. I'm gonna get it in a minute. Dennis Kimbrough said, ignorance is no longer an adequate excuse for failure. Why? Because virtually all limitation is self-imposed. You will soon realize that you, the individual, are a minute expression of the creator of all things. And as such, you have no limitations except those accepted in your mind. How do you properly dissect between healthy boundaries and useless? Oh, dissect between healthy boundaries and useless ones. Um, so if you have boundaries that are holding you back, which I call those borders, okay, things that are preventing you from having what you need to have, being anything that's preventing you from moving forward. So let's say you have borders up around yourself and you don't want to be friends with anybody and you literally have no friends. You have no close friends. You have no confidants. You have nobody that if you went missing would check on you. Then that's probably a border that's not a healthy one that you need to go in and dissect and heal from. A boundary then, this is just my definition, I'm not a therapist, but a boundary then is maybe one that says, I have limitations on what time you can come over my house. That's a boundary. Because maybe you used to let people come over your house all day, times of the day and night. And then you start saying, you know what, after 9 o'clock, y'all can't come over. That's a boundary. Okay. You may have a boundary in a relationship or when it comes to a mate. And that boundary may be, I am not going to allow you to dump your trauma on me, or you don't get to talk to me a certain kind of way. I was listening to a man talk today to a woman, and he was talking to her in a very condescending way. She didn't have a boundary that said to her, you can't talk to me like that, because she just kept engaging with him. See, I have a boundary where you're not going to talk to me crazy. You do it too many times, and then I'm going to stop you and say, you know what? Either this means that we can't continue this relationship, or you need to hang up and call me back when you learn how to talk. So I have a boundary there. A border would be if I said, because some men don't know how to talk to women, I'm not talking to all men. You see the difference? So, and that's a very big distinction, because especially today, we live in cancel culture. And in cancel culture is always like, you do one thing and I'm canceling you. Or if somebody says that I shouldn't listen to you about this issue, then everything else you say, I'm not going to listen to. So we live in that kind of world today. And that usually when you live in a world like that, people are trying to control your thinking. And oftentimes people are so bombarded with folks trying to control their thinking that they stop thinking. And then once critical thinking and mathematical thinking, comparative and analysis and judgmental thinking and all that mathematical thinking was taken out of the school systems, people just don't discern anymore. They just go, you know what, I don't know. And they wait to see what their favorite person is going to say about something. That can also cause you to put up boundaries or borders that hurt you. borders that restrict you, borders that make you say, I'm just a girl from the west side of Chicago and I'll never have XYZ. Borders that say, I had to learn as a child that I can't trust people. So now I don't trust nobody. That's going to hurt you in the long, because you got to trust somebody. You got to find somebody that you can trust. So that's the difference between borders and boundaries. Somebody do me a favor and let's put up the definition. Look on the dictionary, put up the definition of a border, and then put up the definition of a boundary. Let's see who else we got here. Diane Thomas is here. She said, good evening, all. Thank you, Sister Sajdah. Oh, thank you, Diane. Let's see who else we got here. Okay, you overstood. Okay, got it. See, regional sky said reminds me of a micro and macro boundary versus border. Yeah, I should have put those definitions up here, but if somebody can look that up and just cut and paste and put that in the chat, that would be great. Hate to put y'all to work, but y'all ain't doing nothing no way but listening and thinking. Any other questions about having a mind without borders, or the difference between borders and boundaries? And as soon as we put those definitions up there, I'll dissect those a little bit. But the idea is to work on having a mind without borders. Let me tell you something else. Traveling can help you with that. And if you're not able to travel, pick up a good book. Read a book about a country that you've never gone to that's different from yours, and it's going to help you expand your mind. I'm a person, I love to travel. I travel extensively. I've been around the world. And so that will also help you to expand your mind. Okay, Sister Audrey got us going. She said, a border is the outer edge of a surface or image that marks its boundary in reference to others, such as a border you draw around a picture. Okay, so that you don't color out of the lines. So let's see, what is the definition of a boundary? Border, like that dark line, the coloring book, so you don't color outside the line. Sometimes you have to color outside the lines. Sometimes you got to step outside of the box. What is the box? The box is usually some prepackaged definition that we got growing up, or we got from school, or maybe we got from work or from our parents, that tells us you can only function within this parameter. This is the width and the depth of which you can achieve. You got to kick that box to the curb. You got to throw that box away. Let's just get rid of the box. We shouldn't even be thinking about thinking outside the box, because we shouldn't be in the box in the first place. But we're in the box because somebody else put us in the box, and then we stayed in the box. And as we move from place to place, we just move with the box around us. Can you imagine yourself walking down the hallway with a box around you? That's what we did. We walked down the hallway with the box around us, and we got down there. We sat down on the ground and just closed the box up around us. This is all I get to do. Okay, y'all, I'm still waiting on that definition of boundary. We got border. I'm waiting on boundary. Once we get done with boundary, then we're going to be out of here. Tune in tomorrow morning to the financial trauma introduction. Okay. It's going to be right here on, I see it. Thank you. We're going to be right here on the Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. And we're going to talk about the boot camp that's coming up. We're going to dig into this stuff. Let's see. A line that marks the limits of an area, a dividing line. Okay. Boundary, the limit of what someone considers to be acceptable behavior. Try to show love while respecting each other's boundary. Then here's another one. Boundary, something that points out or shows a limit or end, a limit of a subject or a sphere. This is interesting. Somebody put up here the context of love. Who said that? Sister Audrey. Try to show love while respecting each other's boundaries. You know what a boundary? I think about it like this. You know, people who invade your personal space, where they just kind of get too close. That's like people invading your space, your boundary. I'll tell you another one. Growing up, my parents were big on privacy. So my mom wouldn't go through our mail. She wouldn't snoop around in our room. She wouldn't listen on the phone to us because she gave us those boundaries. It wasn't a border, but it was a boundary. And so from that, you know, we grew up with a certain level of respect just from being taught that as a child. So I like this one. A limit of a subject or sphere of activity. Yeah, limit of a subject or a sphere of activity. So, all right, y'all, as you're going through your healing process, it's so important that you take the time when we leave these conversations to go and look up these definitions. I want you to go back and take some time this weekend or even this evening. Do it tonight and talk to the inner child in you. And who is she? Who is he? What's he like? What's the personality? Who hurt him? Who hurt her? Who limited him? Who limited her? What bothers him or her? And have a conversation. Apologize if you need to. I apologize to my inner child because I realized that I had just been pushing her back. And as I was sitting down, just kind of meditating on my inner child, it was really fun because I loved how silly she is. And I remember, I thought about it. I said, I remember one day my mother just doing one little simple thing and me and my brother just crack up laughing like for no reason. And I remember her saying, y'all got to stop all that being silly. And then when I started talking to my inner child, because we was silly, like in a way that she needed to tell us to stop because we were just silly. We probably should have been comedians. But when I was talking to my inner child and I was just kind of feeling my inner child, I realized how silly she is. And I can be pretty funny. I can be silly. Most of my friends who know me, I will have everybody cracking up. But I turn it on and off. And I had to, in that conversation with her, give her the freedom to be her creative self. You know, I thought about something, and I think one of the best times that my business partner and I had when we were building the hospital is I think sometimes both of us would let our inner child come out and we would laugh at everything. Somebody called her. I remember one time we had this girl who quit because somebody called the front desk and was threatening us because they didn't appreciate us building a hospital. And she quit. And we just went in the office and just laughed at them calling on the phone like that. And I don't know what it was, but could have been stress, could have been a trauma response. But sometimes it's good to let the inner child just live. Okay, let's see. Sandra D, you came on in here, sis. All right. She says, Assalamu alaikum, family. Happy, blessed every day. I'll catch the replay. All right, family. I'm going to let y'all go. I want you all to tune in tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. We're going to delve into healing from financial trauma. We're going to talk about the boot camp that's coming up. We're going to talk about how you can invite and bring a student with you, because here's the thing. It is our responsibility to start teaching these techniques to our children and our youth. They're not going to get it in school. They're not going to get it from their friends. It is our responsibility to teach them. Whose responsibility is it? Yours, mine. We have to bring them in the fold when it comes to emotional intelligence, when it comes to dealing with trauma, when it comes to understanding finances and generational wealth, when it comes to doing for self, when it comes to owning businesses, when it comes to our education, when it comes to understanding the future, when it comes to being discerning, when it comes to looking at what's out here on social media and what should you be doing versus what you shouldn't be doing, and what's in the music. Some of them can't even tell if something in the music is ratchet or not. They don't know. They don't know the difference between ratchet and real life. It's our responsibility. And so we have to begin. And there's no such thing as like kiddie camp, children's camp. This is financial trauma boot camp, and our children need to be there. Okay, let's see. All right, family. Thank you, Troy Scott. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Good laughter is good for the soul. I love to laugh. I love to laugh. And I think it's so healing and it's so important. All right, family. We're going to get out of here. If you got anything out of today, make sure you give a love offering. Go to Cash App, Sajdah Enterprises, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Remember that? You ain't doing nothing but sitting there. I'm doing all the talking. Give your sister a love offering or hit that super chat button, whichever one you want to do. Give some stars and likes, but do the love offering. We'd appreciate it. And we'll see you all tomorrow morning. All right. Peace and blessings, family. Love you all.